The publication of WikiLeaks of a huge raft of communiques has wreaked havoc on American diplomacy, but politicians around the world say the confidential reports of US officials offer few new facts. Well, to try to separate the wheat from the chaff and find out what the leak means to the US, we're now joined from Washington, D.C. by Philip Giraldi. He's the head of the Council for the National Interest and a former CIA officer. Mr. Giraldi, thanks for being on the line with us at RT tonight. Well, as I mentioned, you worked for the CIA for nearly 2 decades, didn't you? How could these leaks have happened in the State Department? And you have to ask, didn't they have it coming?
Well, I mean, this is a peculiar situation where in the aftermath of 9/11, there was a tremendous push within the U.S. government to make information more available. And this has been one of the consequences of making information more available. It has meant basically that relatively low-level diplomatic messages and cables have been collected in a database where anywhere between 500,000 and 2 million U.S. government employees have been able to have access.
So, shouldn't there have been tighter safeguards on this information, given the embarrassment it's causing now?
Well, obviously, you know, in hindsight, yes. It's clear that there was enough, while this information was viewed by the government as being relatively low level, the fact is that if you go through that many documents, you are going to find things that are, to say the least, embarrassing. So the issue has now become, how do we allow people in the government to have access to information, but at the same time control exactly what kind of information they're seeing.
The content of some of these cables is really quite embarrassing for the US government and the diplomats who represent it. Is it normal to use such kind of gossipy terms, as the best way to put it, in official documents, even if they're not for the general public?
Well, actually, it's fairly normal to have those sorts of documents in somewhere in the system. In other words, if you're going and having an informal chat with the Prime Minister of a country in Central Asia, there are a lot of people who want to know what the nuances of that discussion were. So some of this stuff is kind of chatty, some of it is kind of amusing. I think the only thing that was really surprising to me was the State Department effort to collect email addresses, phone numbers, personal information on their counterparts overseas and also at the United Nations. This is part of, obviously, a spying operation.
So what do you think the ramifications are going to be now? Will these leaks affect US foreign policy? Will we see any major change in that, or maybe just a superficial touch-up, at least?
Yeah, I don't honestly think it's going to have any impact at all. I think there are certain individuals that have been embarrassed by the leak of the documents that named them. But the fact is that dialogue between the United States and between the senior officials in other countries around the world is because there's a mutual interest in having those dialogues, and those dialogues will continue. There'll be a little bit of a chill, but I think after the chill is over, it'll be pretty much business as usual.
It is, of course, not the first leak of classified US documents. Now, do you think the US will take any steps to finally try and silence the WikiLeaks whistleblower, whoever he or she may be?
Well, the U.S. is clearly taking steps behind the scenes to try to silence them to a certain extent. The Swedish authorities are moving ahead with a prosecution for possible rape. There are moves in Congress to criminalize what took place so that people that work for WikiLeaks can be arrested and prosecuted. They're going to be doing these things, but it's quite questionable to what extent they will be effective.
Okay, well, thanks for being on the line with us tonight. It's appreciated.
Thank you.